As I said, let's crack on with the energy debate, and particularly the way Labor keeps using government authorities like the CSIRO and the energy market operator AEMO to justify its attacks on the nuclear option. We're being fed a lot of dodgy information. Let's look at what the former New South Wales Liberal Energy Minister, now head of Labor's Climate Change Authority, Matt Kean, told a parliamentary committee late last year.
The challenge that the energy grid is facing is that the sources of generation that have underwritten it for generations are coming to end of life. So that's technical end of life. So AEMO, and I'm sure you can ask questions to them, Senator.
Pretty sure we can't, they're not here.
On another occasion, but a high level, they've looked at what the cheapest replacement cost of the existing infrastructure is.
Now, there are two major fallacies in that short clip. First, this idea that coal generators are coming to the end of their lives, just ignoring the fact they're actually being driven out deliberately by green policies that aim to force coal to close and make it uneconomical to upgrade them or replace them. So it's no accident that coal's disappearing. But secondly, this idea that AEMO is just looking for the cheapest and most reliable power, well, it's just not. AEMO is driven by emissions reductions imperatives. Costs and reliability run second and third to the aim of cutting emissions and getting to net zero. Otherwise, they'll just be recommending more coal-fired power stations. Let's bring in energy expert Aidan Morrison. Thanks for joining us again, Aidan. What are your thoughts on what Matt Kean's saying there, trying to tell the whole country that all the energy market is trying to do is to give us the cheapest, most reliable energy?
Look, Matt Kean looks like he's lying to Parliament in that case, because the statements he's made, the representations that he's made right there and then that the market operator's ISP is trying to find the cheapest replacement for coal, that is absolutely false. It is diametrically opposed. In fact, what's become absolutely unequivocally clear is that the market operator's integrated system plan is merely an instrument to achieve government policies. It does not allow government policies to be compared to any other alternative. So this idea that this baseline is somehow tested and compared to other alternatives, like more coal and gas, is utterly false, diametrically opposed. And it's this kind of abuse of the integrated system plan in the debate where it's been weaponised basically to shut down legitimate questions about what the evidence says about how expensive renewables might be in comparison to nuclear, is why it's become literally impossible to continue on and have a sophisticated argument about the facts. And I've gone on and taken the unprecedented and very strange steps to say, until we are allowed to actually have a proper debate about the facts, it is war on the ISP itself, because it's being used and weaponised as the sword and shield of one particular narrative, and it is impossible for us to critique that when we have these naked appeals to authority, such as the market operator. So we're forced now to question, is the market operator truly acting independently here, or are they simply become an instrument of the government of the day and even suiting their political purposes? It's a question that must be asked, and now I've taken the unusual step of going online to ask them out loud, and the answers that you get look like a whole bunch of people that have led us to the situation really are in an untenable position.
Well, I think it's obvious that they're an instrument of the government, that they're not being independent. So let's unpack a bit of what you've got to say. Aren't they beholden under their planning and under their scenarios to deliver a trajectory to net zero, to meet the emissions reductions targets that the government has prescribed? And doesn't that then affect everything else they do?
Look, I think what you've described there is correct, but unfortunately the trust has been broken, because that description that's been given to us, and we've tried to critique the significance and how absurd it is. We have a report that has railroaded us into assuming successive government policies without any critique or comparison of them with any alternative. The excuse that we've been given repeatedly time and time again is that the market operators' hands are tied, that they are forced to follow the rules and regulations that say they must do that. They must impose every government policy as a constraint. And that has been blown apart, absolutely blown apart, because the market operator was actually planning and proposed to the government to let the 82% variable renewable energy share not be bound to assume that is met in every scenario. And the government lent on them and expressed a preference that no, it be assumed to be true in every particular circumstance. So unfortunately, the trust has been broken now. If the question has to be asked, and is always asked, don't you trust the experts? Don't you trust the experts? Someone has to now say, unfortunately, we can't. What they have told us now makes it clear that we must question whether they are acting in an independent, transparent and trustworthy way. And in this case, I don't think that's the case. I think there is a legitimate claim to be made, and there must be some accountability where now we're forced to wrestle with the false perceptions of the integrated system plan and the reputation of the market operator in order to get back to a civil discourse about the facts.
So rather than looking to find the best policies to help the country and deliver reliable, affordable energy as well as reducing emissions, they're actually just looking at the best options to deliver the government's policy.
Look, that is exactly right. And I think it's a travesty and it's an absolute absurdity that people don't understand this crucial fact. And it's ridiculous and untenable that Matt Kean sits in the chair of the Climate Change Authority. Also, I mean, if he's not lying, he doesn't understand that fact. Absolutely incredible. And so it is the case that now the ISP is transparently simply a lens through which to view government policy. And it's not just a rosy lens through which to view government policy. It is incapable of seeing any flaw because it has expunged any alternative, any baseline with which we can compare and see what the actual comparative cost might be. And we've also discovered now that the gas system will not be reliable and we cannot have the peaking services we assumed there would be. And the government has sat on and hidden a report pretty much all year that shows they know that this is not going to actually work out. And yet still that's been basically kept out of the debate while the ISP has gone forward and been launched in 2024 with all the full mantra about it being reliable and low cost, none of which has turned out to be true.
Such a worry. Great penetrating analysis, Aidan. Thanks so much for joining us.